Please take a moment to examine this photograph for 1 minute. I invite you to meditate on every face. Let's engage in an in-depth analysis as if we were art critics. In the midground on the right, a soldier aims his M4 carbine at the child in blue. Running away in the foreground, he's about to shoot him. To the shooting soldier's side, another soldier is loading his M4 carbine to shoot at what looks like the other children. The out-of-focus boy in gray on the right appears as though he's about to grab the boy in the ice green sweater, who seems to be frozen in fear so they can run. The boy in the navy sweater standing closest to the soldiers is the only boy whose torso is turned towards the soldiers, and it looks like he's gesturing with his bare hand to the soldiers not to shoot. In the background, a man by the truck is looking with a side eye at the situation. His face looks worried, but his posture remains unperturbed, maintaining a detached demeanor despite the situation. His livelihood most probably relies on delivering daily vegetables before the strict military curfew, and another child getting killed would disrupt that. A passerby on the sidewalk to the right glances back at the scene much like how you and I might react to a noisy motorbike passing us by. These boys are between 8 and 10 years old. They are dressed in denim pants and cotton sweaters, and they're about to get shot at like defenseless lambs by hyper-militarized soldiers. This photograph was captured by my friend Patrick Baz on November 26, 1993, in Gaza. During his tenure as a photojournalist, these are Palestinian children, and these are Israeli soldiers. And this is a glimpse into daily life in occupied Palestine. This is more than 30 years ago, but this never stopped. Let's examine another one of Patrick's photos. A child's bike in the foreground is on the floor. It could be a playful scene in another world, but in this world, whoever was riding this bike probably got off of it to run for their life from these hyper-militarized soldiers. I know the backstory of this photograph because Patrick shared it with me. In the image, these soldiers are chasing and shooting at children who are throwing stones. But this time they're shooting at them using M16 assault rifles. Look at the child in the red sweater in the foreground. She's a little girl, running away, carrying her backpack, coming back from school. She's the one who certifies to us that the soldiers are actually shooting, and not just aiming their assault rifles with threats because she is covering her ears. In the back, a group of old men sitting on the sidewalk observe the situation. They surely know that they are helpless, but the mid-ground scene is key. The mid-ground scene holds the narrative's intensity. A little boy hiding behind a tree. He is making himself even smaller than he already is, peering from behind the tree at the other soldiers from whom he is hiding. In another world not too far away from this place, children also hide behind trees, but they do so when playing hide-and-seek. In occupied Palestine, children hide behind trees seeking shelter from soldiers wielding M16 assault rifles on duty to actively hunt them down. This was March 1993. This picture won the prestigious POYI Picture of the Year International Award in the Spot News category that year, also taken by my friend Patrick Baz. This and this is a policy called Shoot to Kill. And I want to talk to you about this long-standing policy, as I will show you how the Israeli state consistently targets children and has historically always targeted children on purpose. While more than 9,000 children have been killed in record time by Israel's aerial bombardments in Gaza since October 7, leaving even the organization Save the Children at a loss for words when they famously said in December, "We are running out of words to describe the horrors unfolding for Gaza's children," Israel has pushed back many times, claiming it is not targeting civilians. Well, I'm going to show you that in the history of Israel's occupation, not only do they actively target civilians, but they specifically target children. So let's begin. Remember, these are photos from 30 years ago of Israeli soldiers shooting little children. But fast forward 30 years, these videos are from last month in the West Bank. Watch.
And this is the moment the 8-year-old was shot dead by an Israeli soldier. His brother Baha drags his limp body into cover behind a car.
This was an 8-year-old child named Adam al-Ghul, shot and killed by the Israeli army at point blank just last 29th of November during the Israeli daily killing raids in Jenin. The boy dragging Adam's limp body into cover behind a car, leaving a trail of blood, is his brother Baha, who was still exposed to the shooting but survived. Adam, the killed who was killed, was 8 years old, okay? 8. This is another video from the same day of a 15-year-old child named Basil Abul Wafa, who was also shot and killed by the Israeli army. Specifically, it was by a convoy moving 50 meters away who was leaving the city of Jenin. Maybe they wanted to get a couple more child kills on their way out to make their quota.
His friend, 15-year-old Basil, has also been shot dead close by.
These were caught on camera. Most others were not. This is 12-year-old Ayham al-Shafi'i, shot and killed by the Israeli army for no reason on November 2nd as he was standing by. This is 13-year-old Hamdan, who was shot in the back of the head and killed by Israeli soldiers while he was sitting in the back seat of a car driven by his dad. Why? Why not? Ruqayya Ahmed, 4 years old, shot and killed while sitting in the back seat of a shared taxi van. An Israeli military ambulance took Ruqayya and her mother to a checkpoint after they shot her dead, where her father met them. Israeli forces interrogated Ruqayya's father before allowing him to leave without releasing Ruqayya's body. Yusuf Zardad, 11 years old, shot and killed by Israeli soldiers from a US-sourced Apache attack helicopter. Imagine what they're using Apache helicopters for: to kill 11-year-olds. Ahmed Rabi', 12 years old, shot in the waist and killed. He was just standing by. Mu'taz Mansour, 14 years old, shot in the chest, killed. For no reason. Sharif al-Sha'ir, 16 years old, shot in the back and killed, also for no reason. More than 65 children were killed by the Israeli army just in the past 3 months alone in the West Bank. These are not mistakes. These are not soldiers gone rogue. This is a policy. This is a policy called shoot to kill. The Human Rights Watch exposed Israel's shoot-to-kill policy. This is a paper from 2017. In this paper, they trace back the orders of shoot-to-kill all the way to the top, signifying that it is indeed an institutionalized policy despite being in contravention of international law. Here's a quote I'm going to read. It's not just about potentially rogue soldiers, but also about senior Israeli officials who publicly tell security forces to unlawfully shoot to kill, said Sari Bashi, Israel's advocacy director at HRW. Then there's this piece, published in the British Medical Journal from 2005, entitled Israeli Army's Shoot-to-Kill Policy, that specifically exposes the targeting of children through this shoot-to-kill policy. Renowned psychiatrist Dr. Derek Summerfield, who is involved with various studies on the effects of war and atrocity, wrote this piece. Let's read the highlighted parts together. My statement that, clearly, soldiers are routinely authorized to shoot to kill children in situations of minimal or no threat has now been confirmed in emphatic fashion, the authority being Israeli soldiers who have committed these acts themselves. Followed by, these soldiers testify that they were ordered in briefings to shoot to kill unarmed civilians, including children, even when there was no threat and in periods of calm. This is from 2005, proving to you that this is on and on and on going. Now, but let's take it straight from the horse's mouth. The soldiers. Here's an article by The Guardian entitled, Israeli Soldiers Tell of Indiscriminate Killings by Army and a Culture of Impunity, Whistleblowers' Testimony. I've highlighted some sentences in the article. Can we read them together? Another soldier, Moshe, told The Guardian he and his colleagues came under pressure to obey illegal shoot-to-kill orders. As part of his sergeant's training course, he and his fellow trainees were ordered to set up ambushes in Jenin. He said there was pressure to get kills. After Moshe returned to his paratroop unit, he said there were several incidents where children and teenagers were killed after bullets aimed at their legs hit their chests. The attitude was, he said, so kids got killed. For a soldier, it means nothing. An officer can get 100 or 200 shekel fine for such a thing, which is 12.5 to 25 pounds. Amnesty International has also repeatedly said things like, killing of children must be investigated, and footage appears to show deliberate killing of Palestinian children. I want to explain why Israel does this, but I'm not done with presenting data. Children are not only shot and killed at point blank, they are also shot to be maimed, which is also a policy. Here is Amnesty International's paper from 2018. Israel, deliberate attempts by military to kill and maim Gaza protesters continues. That delves into the shoot to maim policy. Here is also Haaretz talking about blindfolding and shooting a child in his testicles to maim him. The child is already tied up and blindfolded, and then they still shot him in the groin. They shoot children in their reproductive system. Here is a Haaretz again. 42 knees in one day. Israeli snipers open up about shooting Gaza protesters 2020. And here is Haaretz talking about a book called The Right to Maim by Jasbir Puar, and I'm quoting, Israel supplements its right to kill with the right to maim. It argues that the Israeli state relies on liberal frameworks of disability to obscure and enable the mass debilitation of Palestinian bodies. With this author also discusses Israel harvesting organs of dead Palestinians, which many other human rights organizations did. We're not going to talk about this. We're only talking about children today. So when they're neither killed nor maimed, children are kidnapped and locked in torture chambers without charge and sexually assaulted. Read the highlighted parts. Most Palestinian children arrested by the IDF and police are intimidated, abused, and maltreated in custody, and several minors have been sexually assaulted. Do you remember when on Friday, 24th of November, a 4-day truce was reached between Israel and Hamas in order for the hostage exchange to occur, which extended into a 7-day truce? Israel ended up releasing from its jails and torture centers a total of 240 women and children. Did you hear me? Children. 107 of them to be precise. Almost half were children, and another 65 of them were 18 years old. But for all we know, they were captured when they were below 18. So many people on social media asked, why are so many Palestinian children in Israeli jails? Because it's an Israeli policy. In 2023 alone, soldiers arrested more than 880 children in the West Bank in the first 10 months of just 2023. Not only do they imprison children, but they imprison them without charge, and they torture them. Of the 300-person list of hostages that was released by Israel during the truce, 233 of them have no conviction. That's 3/4. Even the New York Times seemed bewildered when they reported on the lack of convictions in this article entitled, "Freed Palestinians were mostly young and not convicted of crimes." And inside the article is this quote, "The Israeli data shows that 3/4 of the released Palestinians had not been convicted of a crime." It's a practice called administrative detention, supported by Israeli law, that allows Palestinians to be jailed for 6 months without charge or trial, with the possibility of extending this period indefinitely through repeated extensions. But if and when they do get charged, it can be forever. You can see a little lower in the article, it says, nearly all Palestinians tried in Israeli military courts are convicted, and those accused of security offenses can be imprisoned indefinitely without charge or trial. The conviction rate is 99.7% for Palestinians in military courts. But many of those that do have convictions, especially security offenses, have them very often for things like stone throwing or something as vague as supporting terrorism. Stay with me. Supporting terrorism for the Israelis includes Palestinians sharing a picture on social media of their killed relatives, and depending on the number of likes and shares received, the jail sentence is issued. That's how dystopian this is. Here's Haaretz detailing that in an article. How Israel jails Palestinians because they fit the terrorist profile. Check out this sentence. Let's read it together. Suad Zarikat's husband was run over and killed in an accident in Israel in 2010. In the early hours of December 2nd, 2015, Israeli forces arrived at her home near Hebron, Al-Khalil, and arrested her. She was handed a screenshot of a Facebook post featuring a picture of her husband with the text, "May God unite us in heaven." Following the interrogation, Zarikat was issued with a 4-month